life is too short for problems, for bad days, for being miserable. And I'm reminded of a time I was downtown Seattle. I had gone into the Smith Tower and I was looking out of the observation deck. It's an older building downtown. And I was on my way out, got in the elevator, and while we were going down, a man got into the elevator with me, and he had no arms. And I remember thinking to myself, well, I guess he must be something of a charity case or something, you know? I guess somebody must give him a chance to work here in the building. That's nice. And we didn't say anything to each other, and I didn't really think too much more about it, other than it's a bit peculiar to see a man with no arms. And then we went out to the street, and we went a bit the same way, walking down the road, and then he got into a car on the street by himself. There was no one else in the car. And he drove away with no arms, because there was something special about his vehicle that allowed him to drive his car without any arms. I don't know exactly how that works. I know it's not probably a particularly simple thing, but it's possible. And I watched this man with no arms driving away in a nice car that was suited for a man with no arms. And what I didn't know at that time was that that rather mundane moment would stick with me for the rest of my life. Because I had an assumption about what that man was all about. I thought of him as not being the kind of a man who would be self-sufficient in any way. I figured somebody's got to take care of him all the time. He isn't going to be able to do things for himself. And the truth is, I'm sure he had a lot of help, because you have to have a certain degree of help in your life if you're going to make it all right without any arms. And yet, he was doing something that most people in his situation wouldn't do. It doesn't matter what the resources are. Most people wouldn't have the courage and the fortitude to go through their everyday life trying to be normal and an acclimated part of society with something so great working against them. Then I thought about how easy it is in my own life to be miserable, to be unhappy, and to have this attitude of woe is me. Now, as time passed, I went through different phases in my life, different stages of happiness and unhappiness, and there were a lot of times when I didn't really feel very good about my life. And I'm reminded of another time when I was watching a trailer for the then new Civilization game, I believe Civilization 5. And the narrator said, build courage when courage seems to fail. Create hope when hope becomes forlorn. And renew faith when there seems to be little cause for faith. And I remember being inspired by that phrase. I learned later that that was part of a speech that was delivered by General Douglas MacArthur in 1962 to the West Point Academy, after he served successfully for many years during the Second World War. But what I realized then was that all of these were action words to build courage. Not to feel courageous, but to act courageously when you don't feel courageous. Not to feel like you have a lot of hope, but to be a hope for others, and even when you don't feel anything. Not to have this sense of the clouds parting and light coming down and all that kind of good stuff, but rather to be faithful even when you don't feel like being faithful. It's about regaining hope. It's about renewing faith. It's about building courage. And life is filled with moments when we just don't feel it, when we're flying blind, when we're surrounded by people, but we feel alone. And yet, we all have blessings in our life. Just by being alive, we have blessings. We have life, and there's some people who don't. As we honor those who've passed on, who aren't with us anymore, we're surrounded by monuments which evidence the fact that we have something that most people in the world don't have, because we have the privilege of being alive and present in this moment. Now, if a man can drive a vehicle with no legs or no arms or something crazy like that, if a man can serve a full tour of duty through the worst war in history and then come out with a sense of nobility and inspiration, people can go through all these difficult times and have good messages and be able to demonstrate that hardship doesn't mean that you can't be having a good life. Then why is it that we, who most of the time don't have so very much adversity? And of course, I don't speak for everyone. I speak for myself, but I know that there are people who are struggling with things I don't struggle with. Most of us, nevertheless, don't have so very much to struggle with as we act like we do. Most of us, probably if you're sitting around watching a YouTube video, you're not struggling so very much. Not saying you don't struggle at all, but we mostly are not sitting in a hospital bed. Most of us are not starving to death. Most of us aren't actively living in a war zone. Most of us have reasons to be blessed. Most of us are frustrated about little things that don't even matter very much. We're frustrated about silly things like what somebody at work said to us, or how somebody looked at us, or what the neighbor did, or what disappointing thing happened with a update for your favorite video game, or some other thing that's really not that big of a deal. But we act like we're always having trouble sometimes. And you know, there are people that way. I've noticed them. People who always seem to have something going on that's a disaster. You say, how are you doing? And I say, oh, it's been a rough week. Okay. You touch base with them next week. How's it going? Oh, I'm hanging in there, you know. Still having a rough time. There's some people who just always seem to be magnets to trouble, don't they? They're just never really happy. They're always upset about something. They're always frustrated about what somebody's doing. No sooner than you look at them and they're going to give you a whole bunch of reasons why you wouldn't believe what somebody's doing to me. And why the day hasn't even begun yet, and they've already got a whole bunch of reasons why everybody's doing them wrong. It's that victim mindset. Don't be a victim. Because the truth is, if you want to be happy and you say, okay, I want to be happy, and then you set off to try to find happiness and you start asking yourself the question, am I really happy? Then you start to realize you're not really happy. Or maybe you're not. Like, how are you sure? How can you be sure that you're happy? How do you know? How do you know for sure? What if you're not happy? Then if you got to fix that, then how do you fix it? And if you don't know, then what do you do? Like, that's quite the conundrum, isn't it? You have to find success in life. You got to finish the main story quest. You got to level up. You got to do your things. You got to get there, man. But how do you do it? What if you never do? Then life's a failure then, huh? I mean, that's kind of what we think. We think we got to find that perfect answer. We got to find that perfect solution. We got to find the fastest path to end game. We've got to make it through. Somebody said something I really liked in another video I was watching. They said, if you focus so much on the game and you take it seriously, then you miss the best parts of it. And that's really true in life. If you're trying to find happiness, that's the best way never to find it. Because you'll be so busy analyzing everything and coming up with reasons why you haven't found it yet and it's not good enough, that you'll never actually just accept the fact that life doesn't have to give you non-stop thrills and happiness and faith and hope and a sense of courage and all those amazing things. You never realize that you don't have to have those things to have a good life. And so you spend all your time looking for those things and you'll be frustrated. Meanwhile, there's other people who are just living their life. They're doing their thing. Maybe they're happy, maybe they're not, but they're moving on. They're not stuck in some sort of a pity loop. They're living. There's people with no arms and they're living. There's people of all ages who are living. There's people doing things every day. They get out of bed, they go about their business, and they don't complain a whole lot. And they don't think too much about whether they like it or not, whether they're getting their way or not. They move on down that path that goes ever onward. They just keep on going. And along the way, they have fun and they have excitement and they have adventure and they inspire others and they find love and they do all these amazing things. And then other people look at their lives and they say, wow, what an amazing life this person had. And that person doesn't even think so very much about it because they just live their life. Because happiness is a choice. It's to realize that you're already there. And if you aren't there, then it doesn't matter what blessings come into your life. But if you realize you never really need to get there, then you'll be there right from the start. And then blessings might find your way and you might find the doors open easier for you than you ever thought that they could. Life just starts to get better. It starts to flow. You realize that you don't have to have expectations. You can just mind your business and go on. And then I think you go on for a while and eventually you realize you've been going on for quite some time and things have gotten better for you. And a lot of blessings you didn't think that you'd ever have in your life have started to materialize in your life. Because a lot of times when you stop focusing on something, that's when you find it. It's like somebody was saying about writing a book. It's not about trying to write a certain number of words. That's not the key. If you want to be good, you got to focus on making good content that other people would want to read. And then getting lost in it. And after a while, you'll forget to even think about how many words there are because you're actually invested in doing the work of writing. You're not trying to challenge yourself to write a certain number of words every day. If you want to find something, you have to stop looking for it. That's how it is in the pursuit of happiness in life. To take life a bit less seriously. To take yourself a bit less seriously. To stop feeling like everything has to go your way. And understand that everyone has a reason for the things that they do. Including you. You got to forgive other people and you got to forgive yourself. Because there's nothing good about a person who always is frustrated at other people. And there's also nothing good about a person who's always frustrated at themselves. Don't do something and then proceed to have this overwhelming sense of regret. You choose to do something with your life and then you hate yourself for what you yourself have chosen to do. That's ridiculous. And yet we do it all the time. We say, oh my goodness, I think I'll get up early tomorrow morning, and then you sleep in and then you are mad at yourself because you wasted a big part of the day. Well, then do something different. If you're not happy with your life, do something different. But you could also just accept your life the way it is and don't be frustrated. Don't say, my goodness, I wish things were different. Just stop seeing life through the lens of always thinking that there's some sort of a problem you need to work through. Maybe things are supposed to be just the way they are. Have you considered that? Because if you haven't, then maybe you don't need to find more truth. You just need to stop looking for truth so much. So much that you can't see the things that are right in front of you. So just remember, if you can have terrible adversity and still find joy, if some people can do that, and then you can't make it through a day at the office without getting frustrated, what are you going to do about that to close the gap between the people who don't have problems and maybe you? Like, life is too short to have problems all the time, to constantly be in a state of crisis. And the truth is, nobody wants to be around a person who's defined by misery. Why would I want to do that? If I can have a life that's filled with peace, why would I want to give up that peace so that I can spend my time with someone who has no peace? That's like taking a cup of poisoned wine and mixing it with a cup that isn't poisoned in hopes that the good part will make the bad part well. Or putting good potatoes with bad ones in hopes that they'll make the rotten ones not rotten anymore. That's not how it works. Maybe the law of attraction is not so very much that we bring things into our lives by thinking about positive things. Not that we attract things that are good by having good thoughts. Maybe instead, the law of attraction is more this: that when we stop having toxic, negative, bad attitudes toward life, we essentially stop poisoning the ground. And then whatever would naturally grow is able to grow there. Because we're not actively killing it. We're not actively destroying the blessings and the opportunities for joy in our life. And then all the things that would grow and would flourish but can't because we have demons that are plaguing us day in and day out. We let go of those dark things. And then nature just naturally will bring good things in where good things can come in. Just as the wind carries seeds in the air and they take root and they turn into trees. But they can't do that if the ground is hard or too rocky or too toxic. You don't have to really draw good things to you as much as you have to stop driving them away. Do try to have a positive attitude about life. That's one thing you will never regret doing. No one's ever said, gee, I wish I was just a little bit more frustrated today. My day would be so much better if I just was a little bit more agitated about the things that didn't go my way. Life's too short for bad days, so make today a day that is devoted only to the very best. Till next time, thank you for watching, and good luck on your adventure.